macrobiologist.
Right? Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Huddle. We didn't warn our guests that our jokes are always really corny, but we always learn that the hard way. Welcome to Tuesdays with Tara and Catherine, where we talk about everything to do with relationships and communication. And we have a guest today. And Tara, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you introduce our wonderful guest.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Catherine. I'm so excited to have Mike here with us today. And before we dig into a really juicy conversation, I'm going to share just a little bit about Mike's history. Mike Morawski brings over 30 years of real estate investment experience, having seen more than $450 million in transactions. As the managing partner of Resilience Equity and founder of My Core Intentions, Mike is committed to helping others reach their full potential through strategic real estate investments and personal coaching. He is the author of Exit Plan, and he hosts the podcasts Insider Secrets and Multifamily Unplugged, offering insights into capital raising and multifamily strategies. Get this. After growing a $100 million investment firm, Mike lost everything and was facing a 10-year prison term. This journey shaped his profound story of hope and inspiration, fueled by success, loss, and redemption. Today, Mike shares his story to help others see that your past does not have to define your future. And as many of you know, this speaks to my heart. So welcome, Mike Morawski. We're happy to have you here.
Hey, Tara, thanks for having me. Thanks, Catherine. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here as early as it is.
Yeah, so I used to tease the sales reps that worked for me. If they'd come sauntering into my office around 8:30 or 9, I'd be like, man, it's lunchtime. But Mike is on the West Coast, so for him, it is truly early. It is just 6 a.m. So let's dig in, Mike. I would love to hear a little bit about your backstory before we dig into what you're doing today and why it matters to our Daily Huddle family. So if you could, tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you ended up such a successful business person, headed off to prison. Tell us that story.
So, I always tell people, Tara, that I never came from a family of entrepreneurs. My family didn't have any real estate background. But my dad always said, don't drive a truck, go do something else. And, I wasn't really somebody who was going to go to school and get a college education. So I didn't really go down that path till later in life, I should say. Started a construction company and ran a very successful construction company. We were building about 25 room additions a year, residential. And like any entrepreneur, and I always say, are there entrepreneurs in the room? Because I think we do everything, right? So, you're doing sales and marketing and doing contracts and ordering material and hiring people and firing people and doing the bookkeeping. And I was still in the field banging nails. And I remember vividly sitting up in bed one morning with my wife at the time and going, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I was just burnt out. And I think part of it was I had somebody knocking on my door to buy the company. So I sold the company, took a year off. And during that year, I bought a couple of 2 flats to rehab those. But I met a very successful real estate agent along the way. And I remember Jim Rohn said years ago that if you want to be successful, find someone who's successful at what you want to do and follow them. And that's what I did. I hooked on to Todd and started to talk with him about going into real estate. And he encouraged me to do so. But then it was funny because I had asked him, I said, can I come and shadow you and your team? And he said, no, I'm going to do something better than that. And I'm going to date myself here, but he said, I'm going to make you a cassette tape that you can follow. And I devoured that. I look at it like these podcasts today, but I
Mhm.
went out and did everything that he said to do. And I sold 78 houses in the first 9 months. I built a team selling over 125 homes a year, and did that for about
What was
12
this
years
cassette tape?
consecutively. And
What was the
then
cassette tape?
he it, just the fundamentals about what to do in the business and how to grow the business the same way he did, which was really, when I look back on it today, it really was giving back to others.
Mhm.
So, there's a whole model around people who are selling their house by owner and serving them unconditionally. And, it was just an interesting philosophy way back when, not knowing what I know today, right? Um, so I followed that, was very successful. 2005 rolled around. I saw
Okay.
the market starting to soften and knew things were going to change, and decided that at that point I was going to go into the apartment business. Now, I didn't just wake up one morning and say I was going to go in the apartment business. This was something that I had visualized and dreamed about for years. I had done a lot of work when I was in the construction company for some other apartment operators in the Chicago market, and they were syndicators. And syndication is what I do. It's really the model around it is we find a great piece of real estate. We go out and we raise private capital from individual investors. We marry the two together and stay in the middle, and everybody makes money, as long as everything goes well. Well, in 2005, I went out and syndicated my first apartment property.
Mhm.
And over the next 30 months, I raised $18 million, bought 4,000 apartments, um, and uh, we owned and operated 4,000 units in 5 different markets around the country. And I built a property management company managing 7,500 units. And we did this in 30 months. So I always
That is
tell people I made
staggering.
5 mistakes, right? I grew weight. Yeah. I'm a little bit of an overachiever. So I grew too fast. I was overcapitalized, over leveraged, undercapitalized. I didn't pay attention to details around me, and I didn't listen to people around me that were important. And those were the 5 mistakes that caused us to falter. 2008 rolled around. The world went into the worst economic crisis it ever saw, and we started to come off of the rails. By 2010, we had lost everything, and were facing indictment, wound up being sentenced and going to prison on a 10-year prison sentence, and got to prison and wondered what what happened in my life, right? Um, do you, I don't know if you want to unpack anything there or if you want me to keep going.
Well, we might circle back to that, but I don't want to. I don't think that's our story here. I tell you what I think is worth repeating before you move on, because you listed your 5 mistakes, and I thought that your ability to make those statements, especially coming from someone who's that type A, high achieving leadership mindset person, I think that was it just took a lot of strength and courage. So would you share with us the 5 mistakes again?
Yeah, and I think there are 5 mistakes that any entrepreneur or business owner can make. I grew way too fast. I was very unstable. Didn't pay attention to the stability within the company. I
Mhm.
was over leveraged. I owned $60 million worth of real estate at 85% loan to value. And I tell people you should be at least at 65% loan to value on your investment loans. I didn't pay attention to the details. So I wasn't involved in the day-to-day operations. I thought I had a team that was handling that. This goes back to trust, right?
Mhm.
And then um, And then I was undercapitalized as a business to grow the business as quick as we did. I had over 100 employees in 30 months and always concerned about how to make payroll.
Oh, the
And
stress of that sounds awful.
it's terrible. And then the fifth mistake was I didn't listen to people around me who were important in my life. And I'll tell you a real quick story about that because I think this point goes to trust and it goes really deep. Um, so in 2008, I was closing the biggest deal we were ever closing. It was about 287 units, and I was sitting in a title office in Cincinnati, and I was waiting for a wire to come from my office. So this wire was supposed to show up all day. I can't get a hold of anybody in my office. I can't find my ex-partner. And all of a sudden, 10 to 5 that day, my ex-partner calls and says, "Hey, I don't know how to tell you this." I go, "Tell me what?" He goes, "We had to move $500,000 from the escrow account to the operations account to take care of some business. And I thought I could have the money put back by today." I said, "I told you we were never supposed to do that. You know,
Mhm.
you handle all the books, all the money, you're not supposed to do that." So I wound up getting that closed. But the point of this story is that that was on a Wednesday. On Friday night that week, I went to dinner with my ex-partner, his wife, and my wife at the time. And on the way home from dinner, and I just want to make this point, I never told my ex-wife anything about business. I didn't share anything with her. I'd say, "Hey, we found a new investor, closed a great deal," but I never told her anything about, the troubles in the business because she just worried so much. On the way home from dinner that night, my ex-wife says to me, she goes, "I don't trust him." Now this guy had been a friend of mine for 25 years. She had known him as long as we had been married and been together. And this comes out of the blue. So I think I'm going to be a good husband. And I say to my ex-wife, "Don't worry, honey, I have this." And I didn't have it. What I should have said, though, and husbands take note of this, what I should have said was, "Tell me more about that. Help me to understand what you're seeing that I'm missing." Um, a week later, I'm out to lunch with my attorney, and my attorney, after lunch in the parking lot, puts his arm around me. And this is a big guy. He's like 6'8", 375, um, uh, and he says to me, he goes, "Mike, I'm not trusting your partner. I don't know what's going on there." And I say, "Bob, don't worry. I have this under control." So twice in 1 week, people came to me with concerns that I negated. And, because I had this level of trust in my ex-partner, people trusted me. Trust comes in all different directions. So is interesting how that whole piece transpired. And when I think back on it,
So, thank you for
so
that. Go
what
ahead.
what I was going to say was, we lost everything. I wound up getting sentenced to 10 years in prison, and I went to prison. And, this is where most people, I think this is the end of the story. This is where, your life's over, you don't go on. Um, it, I had somebody say to me the other day, "You are very tenacious." And people have said that to me over the years, but that's my nature. That's who I am. I'm not going to take defeat as the end. So I go to prison and I'm walking around for the first 3 weeks wondering how I'm going to get through this. Well, all of a sudden I get served divorce papers, and I felt like my life was wrecked and over. I was wondering how I would get through today, much less 10 years of this. And um, so every day, I hated myself. And I always tell people, I say, "Hey, I never flew private. I didn't have a big house. I didn't have a boat. I didn't have a fancy car. And I was the neighborhood baseball coach. I was home most nights for dinner. And I got ripped from that lifestyle to live in a 12 by 12 room with three men I didn't know, nor did I like, wondering what the hell happened in my life. And so, I get served divorce papers. It's even worse now. So I had gone from running marathons to being 35 pounds overweight. I hated myself. I probably would have killed myself, but I didn't have the courage to do so. So I'm about 6 weeks into prison and I walk in the gym one day, not looking to work out, not looking to do anything. And this guy walks up to me and he says, "Hey, don't let these people beat you. All they want to do is take from you everything you've ever known. They can take your business, they can destroy your family, but what they can't take from you is who you are and what you're made of." He said, "You can go back and rebuild all of that." And I don't know, I think we all get faced with defining moments in our life. And this was one for me. This
Okay.
was a point where I had to make a decision whether I was going to let it ruin me or I was going to do something about it. And I chose to do something about it. So I started going to this guy's class every day. I wound up starting to lose weight, feeling better about myself. I wound up writing 2 books while I was in prison. I wrote an ethics course. I taught real estate investing, property management, and ethics in prison for 6 years. How ironic, a federal inmate teaching ethics, right?
That's what I want to dive
Um,
into.
I was I was on an outreach program. I went into the community. I told my story to small business owners and local college students. I wound up meeting a professor at the University of Minnesota. He and I co-authored a paper together that we had published in the Business Journal of Ethics, and it gets taught at the collegiate level for forensic accounting and sales and marketing classes. Um, I went to college. I got a bachelor's degree in theology, and I came home in March of 2020 when they closed the world down for the pandemic. And I thought, I'm going to go in the coaching and training business. Well, I did, and I wound up finding a opportunity to buy, and I went to 2 of my coaching clients, and we bought this property in Florida. But the key point was along the way, our securities attorney said to me, "I think I can get you approved by the SEC to go back and be an issuer of securities." And I got an approval from the SEC to go back and sponsor deals and be an issuer of securities again, um, which I'm back doing what I absolutely love to do. And the only thing really in my life I know how to do. So, which brings me, to where we are today.
Mhm. Oh, wow. I think I failed our listeners a little bit, but if they saw that our topic is around trust and how do you learn to trust again? And to me, in listening to the story, um, you trusted someone that you learned you should not have trusted, and you've repeated that error a few times in life, but you've also had to, rather than hiding your story from folks, which you certainly could do, and eventually they may find out, but hopefully by then they would have trusted you. But you're in an uphill battle to get people to trust you as well. So it's kind of it's I think it's an interesting place, and it's a powerful story that you have to tell. So tell us what you have learned about trust, what you learned while you were incarcerated, and on a grander scale that would apply to our lives.
Yeah. So I- I've learned a lot about trust. And you're right, Tara. I think trust goes both ways. I have to trust somebody, but people have to trust me as well. I didn't think I'd ever go back and do what I was doing. I was on a podcast one day telling my story, and somebody asked me if I was raising money. And I said, "No, I'm not." And he said, "Why?" He said, "I wouldn't want to invest with anybody other than you because you've made the mistakes. You know what to watch out for. You've learned a lesson." And, I think that goes a lot to investors. They want to know. So I'm extremely transparent about my story because I think it helps people. But yes, I had this friend. We were friends for 25 years. We did a lot of things together. He lost his job. I had him come to work for me. I taught him how to sell real estate. He became very successful at it. And I started this apartment business and brought him in as a partner because I thought that his background and our relationship, he would be able to handle the side of the business that needed to be handled. So I put all my trust in him. It goes back to when I told my ex-wife, "Don't worry, I've got this," because I thought he had it, right? And then all of a sudden, he turns, and you know, it, I rarely talk about this because I don't throw anybody under the bus. I broke the law and made mistakes. So because I didn't tell the investors what we were doing, which I broke trust there,
Yeah.
by moving money between companies, trying to save the company,
Mhm.
I got indicted on wire fraud and mail fraud charges for non-disclosure issues. So for not telling my investors. And so I broke trust on that side also with my investors. Um, but as a result of uh, some other behavior that my ex-partner participated in, and then going and crafting a story so that he would get less time in prison, I wound up, you know, taking taking the brunt of it, so to say. Do I regret it? Was it hard? Absolutely. Did I learn a lot along the way? Absolutely. I had to learn how to trust again. And um, because I think trust comes in, you build trust over time, but it's lost instantly, right? And it's gone.
Wow, that's
And then
such a
to
that's
rebuild
a
trust.
powerful statement. I think that there's a delay in our communication. But say that again, what you just said about trust. It's built over time, but it's lost in an instant. Is that what you said?
Right. Trust is built over time, but it's lost instantaneously.
And I think that speaks to
Because,
how valuable in communication and relationships. If we don't have trust, I think everything else comes tumbling down.
right. And Tara, you and I kind of talked about this yesterday, but, if you make a commitment to me that you're going to show up, right? And that I'm going to be on this podcast at 6 a.m. on Tuesday morning, I trust that's going to happen, right? We drive a car in our lane, trusting that the oncoming traffic's not going to come across into our lane and hit us, right? So I think there's all kinds of forms of trust. We have to have trust in business partners, trust in team members if we have teams around us, and trust in romantic relationships.
Mhm.
And, they can all be hard, but, a lot of it is giving your heart, right?
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more. I can't believe how fast this half hour is going, but tell us a little bit more about how you've learned to trust again. And then what our folks don't know is you've had your heart broken even recently by trusting in a romantic relationship. So now you're having to use what you've learned so that you can trust again in business and in intimate relationships. So please tell us about your journey to continue to trust.
Yeah. So I went to prison, and I think it probably took me a good 3 years to start to um, turn the corner about how would I ever trust again. And I learned that so much of trust is about forgiveness. That I have to forgive the other person, but more importantly, I have to forgive myself. I and yesterday you and I had a comment. I said, I think I trust too much, and you challenged me on that, and you said, do you trust too much or too fast? And I love that because I really resonated on that and sat on that yesterday after our call because I wanted to really examine that. I do trust, it. I do trust too fast, right? I dive in
Mhm.
because I think you're gonna, that we're gonna click. Listen, one of my first business or or my business partner today was one of my first coaching clients who I did that first property with in Florida. And I trust her immensely today. But I've also learned that I have to check in, right? And there has to be communication and good communication. And we both have to be honest with each other. I learned to forgive my ex-partner while I was in prison. And I was challenged by a lot of people in prison to do that. And I didn't want to, I resisted it. But as soon as I learned to forgive him and then forgive myself, I was able to start to trust people again. Because prison's not the easiest place to be able to trust people. And then,
No.
right?
Right.
So, and then you come home and then you come home and you start to get in relationships with people again that, and I don't even necessarily mean romantic relationships. I mean business relationships, team relationships, friendship relationships, and you start to trust people, right? Listen, I couldn't have done any of this without my connection to God and my spirituality, because that walk in my life has helped me get to this place.
Mm.
And then you mentioned, my last relationship where trust was broken, and very painful, right? It's been a long walk through a grieving process to be able to forgive, and I think that I've gotten to a point now where I forgive her and I forgive myself for allowing that to happen.
Mm.
Um,
That's really,
so
really powerful. It makes me, my son was also in prison, and one of his Achilles heel is he trusts
right,
way too fast. And he always defends his trust by saying, this person is my friend. And that while they may be his friend, they may not have the integrity that he expects from them. And he continues to learn that. So I look forward to him hearing your message. Catherine, we're running close on time, but I wonder what you've taken from this conversation and if you have a question for Mike.
Yeah, I thank you so much for sharing your story. It's really powerful. I think that the biggest aha moment for me is realizing the connection between forgiveness and trust. I've never really thought about that. So I'm not sure if there's a question in there. It's just more of an aha moment for myself that like, oh, because I guess it's that you have to fully trust yourself. And if you're holding resentment towards yourself about something, you really aren't fully trusting yourself.
right, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And I think there's two other things real quick about trust. We don't trust what's going to happen or our future because we worry, right? Worry's like the opposite of trust. So, I want this great future and I want a great romantic relationship and spend my life with somebody and be able to give unconditionally of me to that other person, which I do in a relationship, which I did. But it, what happens now is you have this worry piece. Oh my God, what if this happens again? What if I trust somebody too much? What if I get in this relationship and they break my trust again? So fear comes in, right? So when fear comes in for us, how do we overcome that? Well, we have to believe, so it's a double-edged sword. This is what I said yesterday, is it's a double-edged sword, right? You have to trust in order to move forward. But if you trust and that trust gets broken, then what? So you have to, it's like I said early on, Tara and Catherine, it, trust is built over time, slowly, but broken instantaneously. So,
Yeah. Thank you for that. You also said something yesterday, and you said it several times, and I wrote it down. And I asked when we were talking about how you've been able to show up trusting and to be trustworthy in life. And you said that you focus on being the person you want to be in life with. And I thought that was a beautiful statement, because if we stop and ask ourselves, what kind of person we want to be in life with, I think we have to start with ourselves. And it looks like you are continuously focused on growing as the type of person that you want to be in life with. Is that accurate?
You know, you broke up a little bit. You broke up a little bit at the end there.
Mm-hmm. I was referencing the comment you made yesterday several times about being the person you want to be in life with, and that you follow Joe Dispenza, and you've done a lot of work with him, and I think Allison Armstrong. And I think that I just want to applaud you for that, for continuing to be the person that you want to be in life with.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And I think that's so true, right? We have to be that person and become that person that we want in our lives.
Yeah. Well, this has been a heartwarming and inspiring conversation, and I'm going to close us out. And then if you'll stay on for just a few moments with us, but we always close out with our tenets. And the first of those is love. And we've talked a lot about fear and worry, and the antidote to those, as we know, is love. So let's remember to lead with all the love that we hold in our hearts. And remember also to give, to be generous, not only with our pocketbook, but with our time and with our vulnerability. Remember to lead with a giving heart and a loving heart. And also remember, do not take life too seriously. Throw that head back and let yourself laugh. So love and give and laugh. And remember to reduce your stress by getting more sleep, by eating more plants, and by getting that body up and moving each and every day. We're so grateful to all of you here on the Daily Huddle. A big thank you to Mike Morawski. Please stay on. We've got some comments, questions, and needs in the chat. So thank you all for being here on the Daily Huddle.